Okay. What did he say?
Good afternoon. Keep your seat for 1 second. I've got a fun fact. And let's see if I can get this right today. We have a member, can you tell me who it is, that yesterday was his 36th anniversary where he pitched the winning pitch that ended the longest winning streak in professional baseball history. Stand up and tell us who it was and where it was. I need to get you a microphone. Mac Jenkins, can you tell us the details?
We played the Salt Lake City Trappers, and they had a record 29 game winning streak. And I was a starting pitcher that night, and we beat them 7-4. I pitched 7 2/3 innings, and it's history. We actually have a little spot in the Hall of Fame.
Congratulations. So it is super good to see everyone today. It has been a while. I'm happy to see you. Summer months are very busy, so thank you for being here. It's a great day to be a Kiwanian. Kids need Kiwanis, and Kiwanis needs you. So please stand and join me in saying our defining statement. Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clay will lead us in song, and then we'll go right into our devotion, but I'm gonna get one of the books while Clay starts us off.
All right, in our book, page 15, Song 33, America the Beautiful. And we'll start with a pitch of "Oh, beautiful for Spain, the skies pour and her rays of rain, for the mountain's majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Okay, Phil is gonna share our invocation today. He kind of got trapped into doing this, but we're happy he's here.
I want to warn you about Bob Goodell. I thought he was interested in my fall and recovery. And a couple of weeks ago, he said, "Can you walk up those steps?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, you're giving the prayer today." So, so let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful but hot day. Too often we fail to pause long enough in our busy schedules to enjoy all that surrounds us. In today's world, we hear the negatives, the crime rate, the political divides, the lack of respect for differing viewpoints, and many others. Help us to remember that while we face many challenges, we are blessed in so many ways. We thank you for our Kiwanis Club, our officers and committee chairs who ensure that we have meetings which inform, entertain, and educate us, along with good food which we enjoy. Thanks also for those who lead our Kiwanis Foundation and who contribute time and money so that we can continue to improve the lives of children and youth in our community. We humbly pray this prayer in your most holy and gracious and humble way. Amen.
Thank you, Phil. I know you would have said yes anyway. Buck, do you want to introduce our guest today?
Well, we have no guests today. We do have a guest, but it's going to be introduced as part of the program in just a few minutes. Let me just go on into membership welfare. The only membership welfare we have today is, okay, I'll call on you for we have two now at least, but I want you to remember Courtney's husband. He is still undergoing treatment for a blood cancer, and he went through some treatments this week. He's holding his own. So keep him in your prayers and in your thoughts. And Frank, you have another.
As I'm sure some of the rest of you do, I exchange emails with J.C. Knowles every now and again. And a couple of days ago, he sent me an email. He wanted to let everybody know he was thinking about them, and he was really misses not coming to Kiwanis meetings. But he also shared that he's going to undergo a heart catheterization in about 2 weeks. And I don't have the exact date, but we need to keep him in our prayers.
And tell me who you said again, I didn't hear.
J.C. Knowles.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just writing that down. Fantastic.
Oh, I'm sorry. The July birthdays are on the board, so please pay attention.
And I think we have some in the room today. Happy birthday. Now for announcements. That's Hugh back there in the back. How many years? 42. All right. Oh, and Mr. Brantley is here. Did I see Mr. Brantley? I did. And Tanner is here. Yeah, so if you have a birthday, just raise your hand, wave your hand. We have a lot of birthdays out there. All right. Happy birthday. So we have the Salvation Army that we are serving food on July the 28th. We have 2 members, Robbie Wooten and Bob Goodell, have signed up to do that. So thank you both. If anybody wants to join them, please let Cricket know. Pancake breakfast. Who can tell me the date of the pancake breakfast? October the 21st. That's Saturday. So we're starting to plan ahead. Sandra is pulling all the chairs of all the different committees together, and they are meeting regularly just to run through those committees. So if you find a place that you want to volunteer, you know who to reach out to. Gwen Bass is the chair, finance chair. Jason Tyson is our volunteer chair, and he has a piece of paper up here if anybody wants to sign to be a specific volunteer in an area. Please make a note. Francis Bobby is our sponsorship chair. Meredith Little is our raffle chair. Meredith Little is our raffle chair. Drew Cook and Hunter Bond. I saw Hunter. Hunter is our food prep chair. And I think that covers, did I leave anyone off? I think that covers everybody. So please reach out to volunteer. It takes a village for that to be a successful project, and we need everyone. Robert Cooper, do you want to speak about the membership drive, or do you want to hold off a little bit?
What I'd like to do is have a membership drive from October 1st
Okay.
through the end of the year. And the person that brings in the most new members, Stacy and I will donate a $250 gift certificate to the Angus Park.
I don't know who you think you have in this club, but I can't do that one. Sorry, thank you. Robert has it. Robert's taking care of all that. Thank you, Robert.
So bring in new members.
Yeah. Buck, are you ready to introduce our speaker? Are there any other announcements while Buck is making his way?
Food drive.
Absolutely. We do have another. Hugh, where are you?
Right here.
I was looking for you up front. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I'm always hiding in the back. So we're 2 weeks into our summer hunger food drive, and the last 2 weeks we were supporting Urban Ministries, their food pantry. They touch the children through meals through the family. They give a week's worth of meals to the family, gifts to the kids. We've raised $3,600 in 2 weeks thanks to your generosity. I think that's worth a round of applause. That's 120 families that we've been able to support with a meal. So The next 2 weeks, we're going to support another mission, similar, but I want to have Mel come on up. Mel Acosta is running the Summer Hunger program with Interfaith Food Shuttle. They're the same program that does Backpack Buddies, but you know, when school's out, they don't do that. So they've been, I'm gonna let him speak about it, but out of the 15 locations in Wake County that are doing summer mules programs, they are sponsoring 5 of those, plus a whole slew of like summer camps, art summer camps, all these kind of things where the kids are captive every day and they are there and they receive a breakfast and a lunch. And it's a wild number that they do every single day. So on your table, you'll see updated sheets for collections. We can still do checks and you can pay online with a card. The numbers that you see there, that data is not exactly accurate. It never really is, but that's quarterly to say the best, but I think it's actually a lot stronger than that. And I'm gonna have Mel talk to you about it before we proceed. So thanks, Mel.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for having us. I just want to share and give you a quick crash course of what we do. But I want to say thank you for allowing us to be here, and we appreciate what you guys are doing as well for the community. So NFA Food Shuttle, we are a food bank, not a typical food bank like you normally see. Can you hear me better now? Okay, sorry. We serve 7 counties in our area, Wake County being our largest. We distributed a little over 10 million pounds of food last year in this area, and we are, like he said, sponsoring 5 of the 15 summer camps that Wake County has right now. We're doing roughly a little over 3,000 meals a week for those kids, as well as distributing dinners in different sites. So our kitchen is doing somewhere roughly around 6,000 meals a week that is going out to kids, either in summer camps or non-profit summer camps, or having like the School of Music or the Community Music Arts, the Gifted Arts Academy, and many, many more. So everything that we receive as a support goes to our programs. One thing that you typically don't see on a food bank, we have a food truck. So our food truck goes out to the community, as well distribute food to the community and the families. And we also go and do enterprise, and all the funds that we generate from that goes strictly back into what we do every day, supporting the kids. So we want to say thank you for having us here. We appreciate your support. I appreciate what you guys are doing, and thanks to those who have volunteered with us before. So thank you very much.
Mel, say that number one more time. How many a week? It's 6,000
It's about 6,000 meals.
6,000 meals.
6,000 meals.
That's wild.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking to us. So 2 more weeks. Let's continue that wave of awesome, excellent Kiwanis generosity. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you. Before I introduce the speaker, let me just mention for the upcoming programs in August, we have Loretta Bonetti from Spectrum TV, who's going to talk about the unbiased, or if there is unbiased political coverage in an age of rage and ranting in politics. You should enjoy that. She is a good commentator, has her own TV show. After that, we've got the Meredith College golf team, and it's going to be the 2 principals of that golf team. And they are the ones that when they went out for the first practice, they scored over 200. Now, you know, you're looking for 70 to 80 or something like that. They got over 2. They'd never played golf before. So their presentation is going to be playing golf with determination. There's no doubt it's going to be about determination. It will help all of your golf games. We'll be followed in again in August by David Browder of Pine Cones. He will be talking about what's going to happen when we have the Bluegrass Festival downtown, which will be coming up shortly. And then on the 25th of April, I talked Phil Kirk, 25th of August, I talked Phil Kirk into giving a talk that he has prepared and given to other people, but never to us, which is entitled Humorous Things That Happened in grades K through 12, and also humorous things in the governor's office and in the legislature. So I know you'll want to hear that. But nothing is more important than what we're going to do today, and that is we're going to talk about mediation. You know about law, you know about lawsuits, but not many people know the full story about mediation. Our speaker is Frank Laney. Frank is or has been the mediator for the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, the 4th Circuit. He spent 25 years doing that. He's mediated more than 5,000 cases before he retired in 2022. He's been an ex-officio member of the North Carolina Dispute Resolution Committee since its inception, and since 2021, he has been a commissioner. He is an adjunct professor at Campbell University Law School, High Point University Law School, and North Carolina Central University Law School. He teaches and certifies people to be mediators in North Carolina. Since 2015, he has taught mediation in Belarus, including a fall as a visiting Fulbright Specialist, and more recently has taught mediators in the Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan. He helped lead the efforts to design and implement each court-based mediation program we have in North Carolina. He is an authority on mediation. He has a BA in psychology from state, and yes, for your Carolina people, playing it even today, he has his JD for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So let me introduce to you Frank Laney.
Thank you. I just appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you. Years ago, I was invited to come to an evening seminar at Duke and talk about mediation in North Carolina. I got there and asked the young lady professor how long she wanted me to talk. She said, well, just talk a while and I'll take over. 2.5 hours later, she said, can we take a break? But Buck has instructed me that I will quit before 1:30. So Buck and I go back a ways, and when he was fairly new at the Industrial Commission, I was also fairly new at the Industrial Commission, and my responsibility was to design and operate a mediation program for the Industrial Commission. But I'll get into that a little bit later, but that's how Buck and I know each other, so we go way back. That was before I worked for the Fourth Circuit, so I guess it's about 30 years ago now, more or less. So I am a mediator, but I'm an attorney by training, but almost all of my career has been spent mediating, designing, setting up, running mediation programs. So if you ask me a legal question, I try to give you legal advice. My suggestion is to walk away because I don't know what I'm talking about unless it's about mediation. There are no mediator jokes that I know of, and so I'm not going to tell you a mediator joke. So let's just start talking about mediation. I want to start off with my definition. So people ask me what I do, and my one-sentence definition of mediation, or what I do, is I work with both sides of a lawsuit to try to get the lawsuit settled and out of court. So, people file a lawsuit in court, and the court in North Carolina, the system is that the court, through one mechanism or another, says, before you get a hearing, before you come to trial, y'all go try to work this out. And you either select a mediator, there's a roster of certified mediators, either select a mediator, or if you don't select one, I will appoint one for you in about 10 days. And so the vast majority of people in North Carolina select their own mediators, which is great, because we think the free market is the best quality control in the world. And so if you're a good mediator, you're going to get called over and over again. If you're not a good mediator, well, you can go be a carpenter. And I don't make any apologies for that. So or whatever else you want to do, no degrading of carpenters, but just whatever else you want to do. But, we're not promising everybody who gets a mediation certificate a living. You got to be a good mediator if you're going to make a living doing it. So I work with both sides of a lawsuit trying to settle the lawsuit. But my sort of more technical definition is 4 words: neutral, facilitated negotiation with a goal of resolution. So neutral, facilitated negotiation with a goal of resolution. So what the parties are doing in my mediations they are negotiating, because I'm not a judge. I'm not making any decisions for anybody. So as I was talking to one of the members before we were coming in, as I tell people, I don't make any decisions. So you don't need to convince me of anything. The person you need to convince is the guy or lady across the table. They're going to make a decision as to whether they settle with you today or not. So you've got to put an offer on the table that meets your needs, but also meets enough of their needs that they're going to say yes. So that's what you're doing there. The litigants are doing there, or the parties are doing there, is they're negotiating a settlement. They got a problem, and a lot of people tend to see problem as, I'm on one side and Phil Kirk's on the other, and we got a problem. But he's the problem sitting across the table. Of course, he sees it differently. I'm the problem sitting across the table. But there's another way of looking at it, and with what we mediators try to encourage people to do. And this is from a little book called Getting to Yes. So if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, try to step back a little bit so I don't hit the microphone so much. There's a book called Getting to Yes. It was printed in the early 1970s, been printed in over 100 languages around the world, and so sold over 100 million copies. It's a fairly thin little book. You can read it in a dedicated afternoon. And it's about how to get together, how to work together. So their idea is that Phil is not the problem and I'm not the problem. What it is we've got a problem, but the two of us need to sit on the same side of the table working on the problem. So we need to do more cooperative working together to solve our joint problems rather than blame him or him blame me for the problem. So negotiation is what the parties are doing. And what their goal is resolution. Now, of course, I want to help them to a resolution, but that's not exactly my goal. My goal is to lead them through the process, to facilitate. But their goal is resolution. If they don't think that I can help them resolve the problem, they're going to go do something else. They'll file a motion with the judge to say, please excuse us from having to meet with Mr. Laney. He's incompetent and has no idea what he's doing. So he cannot help us. So please let us do something else with our time and money. So they have a goal of resolution, and that's where they want to go. They want to solve this problem. They don't care much about feelings. Sometimes they care about relationships, but usually that's sort of down on the totem pole. But particularly insured claims, you don't have a relationship with that guy's insurance company. You don't ever want to see him again. You don't ever talk to him. And they have the exact same feeling about you. They don't ever want to see one of your claims again. So it's not about relationship. It's about solving the problem. Sometimes it can be. Now, in divorce cases, that's very, very different. It is about relationships because I may no longer be your husband. You may no longer be my wife, but we will be mother and father together until somebody dies. That can be a long, long time. And we also have assets that we need to figure out how we're going to pay out, divide, and figure this out so that we can work together in the future for the benefit of both of us. So they're trying to reach a resolution. They're negotiating a resolution. My job is to facilitate that. So what I do is I try to help them with their negotiation. Now, honestly, almost nobody ever comes to me who has not already tried to negotiate, either directly or hire their knight in shining armor called a lawyer to negotiate for them. So almost in every single case, the parties, the lawyers, their representatives, whatever, have tried to negotiate a solution. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. So I'm there to see if I can help them over that hump, if I can help them do what they could do with me, what they couldn't do by themselves. And not to say that they're bad negotiators, but sometimes problems are just really, really tough. And so I'm there to help them with that, to cause that conversation to occur. And my experience is that there's sort of two ways in which I do that. I do lots and lots of things, but they fall into, in my mind, two baskets. And they're both coaching. So Jim Valvano, Dean Smith, Mike Krzyzewski, whatever your flavor of basketball is, those are all great coaches. But I hate to tell you, not a single one of them ever scored a single point for any of those teams. All they can do is sit on the sidelines and holler and sometimes cuss at the guys on the floor, but those guys are up and down the floor. They're the ones who score the points, play defense, etc. And so that's sort of what I do, is I work with them. They're negotiating. I can't negotiate for them. They're negotiating, but I try to help them figure out how to do a better job of their negotiation. And there's two areas. One is communication. Everybody can talk, but as you're all well aware, some people are a little easier to talk to than others. And so that's what I do, is I try to modify, moderate, help the communication. Sometimes the best thing I can do is put them in separate rooms, and I do all the communicating. I just walk back and forth between the rooms, carrying the messages, because, if I'm in the room with L, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to talk to him about exactly what I think, which is not going to be real helpful to get L to agree with me as to how to solve this problem. So sometimes the best thing I can do is put them in separate rooms. Not always, but sometimes that's a real tool that I use a lot. So I help them communicate. And maybe it's by getting them also to see the problem differently so that so it's not just what they say, but also what they hear and understand. Also get them to communicate clearly. Very commonly, Buck and I just don't like each other anymore. We used to, but those are long gone. And so when Buck opens his mouth, where does my brain go? At the end, or maybe even halfway through, the first sentence, I'm starting to argue back in my head. How am I going to rebut what it is he's talking about? You know, how am I going to stick it back to him? And of course, he's doing the exact same thing to me whenever I'm talking. So he's not listening and I'm not listening. So as a mediator, what I do is there's tricks, there's things, not tricks, but there are techniques that I use to try to help people listen and understand without the fog of war, so to speak, getting in between us so that the people don't listen to each other. So I facilitate communication. I also facilitate negotiation. I know you would be very disappointed if you were to understand exactly how bad a negotiator some lawyers really, really are. When I was in law school, there was no such thing as teaching negotiation. So people of my generation, we all learned it, by the seat of our pants once you got out of school or reading books or whatever. Nowadays, they do teach it some, but not probably enough. But there are some lawyers that just are not real good at the negotiating business, and also business people as well, to be honest. So what I do is try to help them structure their negotiation in such a way that it leads toward a resolution, that they can get there if they really want to. There's a lot that I could say about that. It gets kind of technical, so if you have questions, I'll be happy to go into it, but let me leave that where it is. So I facilitate their communication and their negotiation to try to help them do something that they've not been able to do yet. And the last thing is I'm neutral. And I think that that's an important part of the definition because for two reasons. One, I think my being neutral, not just my being neutral, but my being perceived as being neutral is vital to what it is I do. Excuse me. Think about when you were a kid in the neighborhood. You got into a spat with another kid in the neighborhood. Whose mother did you want to go to resolve this spat? The other kid's mother or someone else, like your mother? You generally did not want to go to the other kid's mother. Now, I admit there's variation in our society. So some kids' mothers would be harder on them than anybody else. But some kids' mothers might take that other kid's side and try to blame the whole thing on you. So you want someone neutral, not someone who already has a bias. So by being neutral, it helps me because the parties then are more likely to trust me, and people talk to people they trust. If I don't trust you, I'm not going to say a thing that you want to hear. So to get the story, to understand what it is you really want, what you need, how this started, what's going on, I need you to trust me enough to give me that information. People don't like to give up information if they feel it will come back to bite them. Well, if you don't like me and you are going to use whatever I say against me, I'm not going to give you information. But I have to have information as a mediator. I don't know what the case is about when it comes in. Y'all are the experts. Y'all are the ones who've lived this situation for months or years possibly. So I need you to tell me what's going on. And so to do that, you have to trust me. And to do that, you need to perceive me as being neutral. So it goes beyond me being neutral. You have to perceive me as being neutral. And there have been a few times in my life where somebody, for one reason or another, did not perceive me as being neutral. And so that stymied me. I needed to get over that hump. I needed to convince them or get them to see me as being neutral before I could continue going forward. There's one particular case I can remember where a man worked for a federal agency who I was mediating with, and they actually had like 3 or 4 lawyers there for this case. I'm not sure exactly why that many, but that's what they sent. And so the federal agency's policy was to require a certain structure to any settlement. And I was trying to convince the man, just point out to him gently that your policy was not dictated by God. It's not Holy Scripture. It's not required by federal law. It's your policy. And how did you come to your policy? Somebody in your organization made a decision. So that means that somebody in your organization can make a different decision if you want to, and you enforce the policy in a different way in this particular case because of all these factors, these reasons why this particular policy doesn't fit this case. Once he figured out where I was going, you would have thought that I had spit on his Bible. I mean, he went nuts. And so as he was walking out the door that day, shaking my hand, saying goodbye, because we met many, many times in this particular case, a very complicated case, he accused me of drinking the Kool-Aid. And I presume that y'all are all old enough to understand what that means. You know, Jonestown, where all the mothers gave their little kids Kool-Aid and poisoned them all before the federal government could show up. So he accused me of drinking the Kool-Aid. However, I did notice that in all future meetings, he was not present. So the rest of the people on the team thought that he was not helpful in getting this case settled. But, you know, and that was probably a wise decision. I'm not blaming on him, but simply saying that as long as he could not see me as being neutral, we were not going to be able to work together on a resolution. So one of the things that I think is important about mediation, that I think is important for people to understand about it, is that mediation is a unique opportunity. It's a unique opportunity in the life of any case. So, as I've said before the mediation starts, the parties have generally tried to work it out. They've tried to negotiate a settlement. And if they negotiated, then great, they have no need for me, and that's fine. But traditionally, you know, like back when I was going to law school, when many of y'all were much younger, but traditionally, if you couldn't resolve it settling the case, what you did is you just went straight to court. You know, so when I came out of law school, there was not a monopoly on how cases were resolved or disputes were resolved. There was a duopoly. You either negotiated or you went to court. And duopolies are better than monopolies, but they're not much better. And so the North Carolina Bar Association, a bunch of lawyers, decided in the early 1980s that coming up with a different way of handling disputes was good for the citizens, good for the courts, good for the lawyers, good for everybody in the state of North Carolina. And so the North Carolina Bar Association deserves a huge amount of credit for having the vision, having the wisdom to go and look for and search around and find this new mechanism and then bring it back and say, we want this for the courts. But anyway, I'll come back to that. I'm going to put a pin in that and I'll come back to that in a minute or two. But so there's only two ways to settle disputes: negotiate or litigate. But with mediation, there is a unique opportunity in the middle. So you're not left alone on an island with this enemy of yours that you're trying to negotiate with. And also, and negotiation is a great method of resolving disputes. I have no idea. I don't know. I've never seen anybody who's done any statistical analysis, but I would say 99% of the problems that people have in our society are resolved through negotiation, one way or another, one type of negotiation. And there's all different types and levels of negotiation. And a small fraction, but an important fraction, are resolved through the court system. So in negotiation, you have complete control. You can say what you want to say, you can frame the problem however you want to frame it, you can put out whatever kind of solution you want, and you have the yes or no complete veto over, is there a resolution? But at the end, the person on the other side of the table also has the exact same power. So both of you have to get along or reach agreement to settle the dispute. So you have power over it. You can form whatever resolution you want to fit your life. Now, if you can't do that and you have to go to court, courts are wonderful at resolving problems, but there's a limitation. And the limitation is what the legislature has said. And in a huge amount of that, the things that are important to be said about this case occurred in the late 1960s. Now, God rest their souls, but those legislators are all gone and dead. So your case being tried in court today is largely governed by what a bunch of legislators said in the late 60s and 70s. And They don't know you. They don't know your case or your client. The way legislation is passed in this state, at least in my view, Buck may tell me different someday, but the way legislation is passed is the legislature goes home and hears from a constituent that says, you know, there's a problem here. We need to change the rules because there's a problem. So that legislature comes back to Raleigh, legislator comes back to Raleigh and meets with all the other legislators and says, oh, do you have this problem? Do you see this problem? And they do some sort of a study of some sort of a kind across the state to see what kind of problem it is and how's the best way to solve it. And so they come up with a single solution that applies to everybody, kind of like peanut butter. It spreads evenly across the entire state. But that is the average solution. That's the solution that fits all of us. So you're left with a one-size-fits-all pair of pants. Does one-size pants fit everybody? One-size shirts maybe do a little bit better job, but even those don't really fit everybody. So I'm not blaming the legislators, but that's sort of what you have to understand it, is that they have created a solution for everybody in the state. Well, I'm not everybody in the state. I'm not average. I think I'm pretty unique. And my guess is you think you're pretty unique too. So the solutions that match your situation are going to be unique to you and your situation. So that's one of the problems with the court. Now the court will give you an answer, but is it really the answer that you're looking for? And if you need help negotiating, but you also still want control over your own life and your own solutions and your own pathway forward, then mediation is your kind of one opportunity. And so that's the real opportunity of mediation. We make our own decisions in mediation, or you make them, I don't. But parties make their own decisions. That is a very American thing. And my eyes were open to that when, starting almost about 10 years ago now, I started traveling to Belarus, then later to Ukraine. I have not been to Kazakhstan, but I have done a lot of Zoom. Kazakhstan came on my radar screen about the time of COVID, so no flying to Kazakhstan. I've also never been in Russia, but I've also done Zoom communication when training in Kazakhstan and in Russia. And so I have an understanding a little bit of the post-Soviet mindset. And this is not just my opinion. I reached this opinion, but then have spoken to a number of people over there, and generally they agree with me that in Soviet times, that the safest way to resolve something was to have your boss, your commissar, your mayor, your neighborhood leader, whoever it is, have the leader decide it for you. So Buck and I have a problem, we go to whoever is our boss, and the boss decides it. And then I get to go home, I get to complain about what an idiot my boss is, drink vodka, and complain. But I don't take any responsibility for what happened. It's the boss's responsibility. So, which is sort of the reverse here. You know, in America, we love to make our own decisions. So mediation is sort of made for Americans. Over there, mediation has been a bit of a harder sell because there is not that structural societal mindset of I want to make my own decisions and I will take responsibility for my own decisions. I will live up to my decisions. So there has been that difference. Let me talk for a little bit. Let me give you a little bit more about the history of mediation in North Carolina. That was something that somebody would have asked about. Mediation started in Chapel Hill out of the Vietnam War protests. There was a group of ladies in the community. They had a club of some sort, I don't know the name of the club, who was politically active, and they were very concerned that these college students who protested the Vietnam War being arrested and going to court. Now, if they were arrested for trespass or throwing a rock, okay, that's fine. Try them and convict them for trespass or throwing a rock. Do not try them and convict them for their thoughts or their words. That is un-American. That is unconstitutional. So they set up a court watch. So I don't know if you're aware, but there's a post office in downtown Chapel Hill, and kind of around back, there's a courthouse there. Most people don't even know it's there. But there's a little tiny courthouse there. And so they sat, and several days a week, they were there all day watching these trials. And they found out two things after doing this for several years. One was that the courts were treating the protesters exactly the way that you would want them to be treated. They were tried and convicted for their crimes, not their thoughts or their words. But the second thing was they discovered there's a lot of stuff that's in our court system that doesn't really need to be there. And so they started looking around. Is there some way we can get these things that are really just interpersonal disputes out of the court system and figure out some way in society rather than rely on the courts? And so they discovered mediation and brought trainers in. And so they set up a mediation program. And they were in contact with people in other parts of the state. And so by the early 1980s, there was, in most of the major counties in North Carolina, there was a mediation center. And the lawyers, they learned about it because I would go into court with my client, who's going to be, presumably tried for some, minor offense. And the judge stands up and says, Mr. Laney, just have a seat. Your client's going to go over there and speak with this mediator person, and we'll see if we can get this resolved. I go, what? And then my client comes back and is extremely happy because there's no conviction, there's no record, they've solved it, and everybody goes away. The whole thing goes away. I go, geez, that's more magic than I could possibly do. This is a great idea. So lawyers started to get into it, and that's how the Bar Association got into it. And so in the 1980s, the Bar Association was set in the early 90s, was setting up mediation programs in the state of North Carolina in the various courts. The first major program was mediated settlement conferences in Superior Court. So basically your standard average civil case, not criminal. There is a mediation program for criminal matters, but it's very small and it handles only very small cases. So we'll sort of leave that aside because most of the cases are in Superior Court, civil Superior Court, and all of the policy of North Carolina is that all those cases are mediated before they go to trial. So before you go to trial, we have you give people an opportunity to mediate. And then that was an incredibly successful program. It went statewide immediately. And then the next thing that we did was family financial, which is divorce mediation. So not the children, but rather the financial aspects. So there's now a program where if you have assets to be divided, you go to a mediator, and the mediator tries to work with you on settling those matters. And then about the same time, the Industrial Commission came along, and they wanted a mediation program. And their history was that they were just overwhelmed with cases for whatever reason. I'll be honest and say some of it was just rising cases, and also some of it was underfunding by the legislature. But they were just overwhelmed with cases, that it would take years to get a hearing, which is not the way it's supposed to work. And so, under Buck's leadership and also the leadership of Chairman Bunn, they decided to implement a mediation program, hired me to come in and set that up. And we mediated thousands of cases a month. So just within a year or so, completely got rid of this 6-year backlog. So it was a very, very successful program. So there's a lot more things that I could talk about, but hopefully that gives you sort of an overview. Are there any questions or comments? Got a bunch of questions over here.
Thank you for coming. I have a question about divorce. Do you do divorce mediation as well? Or just
I do.
business? Okay. So I have, I've had a couple folks I've known, clients, to go through a divorce, and I've recommended mediation, but that seemed to fall on deaf ears, much to their detriment. So how would you go about suggesting to folks a mediator, especially if it's only one party that we have access to? And then how do you also, how is that seen as neutral if it's coming from one of the parties? You know what I mean?
Well,
so I mean, do you have advice in that regard?
Well, I mean, you raise a tough question. I mean, I'll admit, and in my practice, that is a tough question. And so what I generally do is if someone says to me, I want you to be my mediator, whether it's divorce or something else, I say, would you please talk to the other side first? If you can get them to call me for free, because I mean, you do pay me for our services, but for free, I will be willing to talk to the other side first and see if we can get along, and we'll try to convince them. My experience is that if that person will talk to me, I have a really, really, really high rate of getting them to understand the value of mediation. So, but But you're right, me calling that person can be seen as intrusive and, you know, that I'm already biased. And so I try to, so that's the particular way that I handle it, is to try to get, you know, either your client or you to somehow contact the other side, give them my name and number, and see if they'll, and I'll say, look, you know, if you want to mediate, but not with me because you don't trust me, that's fine. I'll help you find another mediator. There's only 2,000 in the state. So there's plenty of mediators out there. I'm happy to help you find somebody else. Yes. Yes, sir.
I was very interested in listening to you about mediation in a couple of the worst countries in the freaking world, Belarus and Russia, and maybe Ukraine back when you were doing it. Tell me some stories about how in the hell can you mediate in those countries?
Well, first of all, I did not mediate. I was training mediators. So the people I was working with were mediating, but first of all, they use a philosophy of law that I believe is called positive law. There's some other names for it, but they believe that they can't do something until there's a law passed that says they can. And as I like to say, we Americans think we can do anything we want to, and even if the government says we can't, we will feel free to push back. That's us. So the notion that the government has to give me permission to mediate is just completely foreign to my mind the first time I went over there. So in those countries, the government did eventually get around to passing a law saying you can mediate. But the problem is getting the parties to agree to do so. It's exactly the mindset. And so they do a lot of sales, excuse me, and try to, one side will contact them and the mediator will then contact the other side and try to convince that person of the benefit, of the positives of mediating, of why it's better to mediate than to not. And yeah, they have a struggle there in trying to convince people to mediate. Yes, and there's another one. Oh, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I'm in the equities business, and our contracts are always state that you have to go through mediation before you go to court. And I've never had anybody balk at it. But my question is, how in the world do you get the trial attorneys to go along with this?
How did we get them? You say, how did we get them back in the program starting? My job was, at that point in time, I worked for the North Carolina Bar Association. I was the point person for all of this. And so I would go and speak to groups like this, except for there was the local bar association. I'd speak to the Wake County or the Wayne County or the Halifax County Bar Association. And I would say, look, this program is coming in. I understand you may not like it. The legislature's passed it. The Supreme Court has adopted rules. It's coming. But I'm the point person. So if you don't like it, try it twice. Now, anything can go wrong one time, but please do me a favor, try it twice. If after trying it twice, you still don't like it, call me up. We will talk. I'm sincere, we will talk. If the program needs to be changed, we'll change it. If it's so bad we need to get rid of it, we'll get rid of it. Call me up. 35, 40 years later, nobody has ever called me. So the way we sold it to people is we said, try it, you will like it. And we proved to be right. Now, there were some people who, we had to do some convincing. I'm not saying we pushed anybody. We had some long conversations with, but it was simply the fact that once they tried it, once the lawyers in the community tried it, they liked it. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have been a mediator, and probably 75% of the cases that I had were court appointed. Therefore, I had my share of what we would call whiplash cases.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have a situation where one side was taking an unreasonable position and they were pretty locked in. The mediator saw it. The case had impasse written all over. How would you handle that?
With patience. So the fact that somebody comes in unreasonable, I mean, that's the definition. I mean, if they were reasonable, they would have already settled the case. So I expect people to come in unreasonable, but it's my job to help them understand that the world's not built around them. The judge may or may not listen to them. Not to say the judges ignore them, but we can have a conversation here. Well, what's admissible evidence may be a very different thing. And so all of the things that you want to talk about here today may never get into court. And so I try to convince people to look at the matter not as I want to see it, but as the case really is. And, you know, so yes.
We've got time for one more question, and then they can talk to you after.
Go ahead.
How do you handle the certain insurance companies that refuse to mediate?
Well, the Supreme Court has said that they have to. And so so what I do is I contact them and invite them to the party. And if they don't show up, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. So okay, so it takes time and effort, but I try to get that insurance adjuster who then communicates with his company to see the problem differently than they did coming in. So I try to change the frame around the picture. So what you're saying is you will not pay another $2,000 to settle this case, although you will pay an attorney $15,000 to defend you in court. If that's your business decision, that's fine with me, but I want to make sure you understand that's the business decision you're making. That's the kind of conversation I have, but it takes hours. Well, I will. Give me a call if you want to mediate.
Okay, we need a microphone because folks online are not able to hear. So I'm sorry, guys. Just need one more microphone.
Already got the microphones off.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
What's your question?
Can I get the legislature to use a mediator? That is a theoretical possibility, but it is a difficult thing, partly because to mediate that sort of thing, you've got to bring 200 some people in the room, 300 some people in the room, and that is really difficult to do.
All right, let's give a big round of applause.
Well, thank you. Yes,
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Get my stuff out of your way.
Oh, and I left my pen. Stay with me there. So we donate a book to the school system, and we're going to do it in honor of you. If you will sign the front of this for us, and we'll make sure that it goes to the elementary classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. I think we all need to read the book, How to Get a Yes. Agreed?
Getting to yes.
Oh, how getting to yes. I need to change that. So thank you. We will try and read that, and we won't be bothering you in the future.
Bill, as I told you up front, the lady said talk for a while, and 2.5 hours later. So feel free to call me anytime. Send me an email. I'll call you back. I love to talk about this stuff. So
do you know what you're asking?
That's fine. I'm retired. I got plenty of time. So
you should come join our club.
Okay.
So I'm super happy to see everybody today. Thank you for coming. I want to remind the new members that we need to be a greeter 3 times to get the new member off of our badge. So if you would like to do that, please let us know. We have an opening. Also want you to look around the room. Who do you know that is your friend who is not here? Pick up the phone, ask them, come join us. What a bigger community will be. We have a lot going on, and you don't have to wait for the contest in October. I might twist Robert's arm to start it in September, but we're working on that. Done. Okay, so that is fantastic. And for all the birthdays, happy birthday. Have a wonderful and safe weekend, and we will see you next week. Thanks. Good to see you all. Bye. Thank you so much. Please come join us again. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that, but it is a good group. And we have lots of members from there.